Hello, welcome back to another video in my Learning to Draw series. Today I'm going to show you guys part 2 of drawing our still life. I'm going to add more detail and some value to give us a more finished look. So when we last left off, I was demonstrating how to find the proper proportions, and I believe I have a pretty accurate view of this. I've stepped away from this for a day. So now I'm just going to check my lines and make sure everything looks accurate. And right now it looks like it does. I think I just want to bring the edge of this bottle down a little straighter. I think that's probably my only change. So this is a good note for you guys that sometimes it's okay to leave a drawing be for a day so that you have some time to just let your brain adjust to not seeing it. I think oftentimes when you stare at something for a long time, you kind of just don't really see your mistakes. Another thing that you could do, a good little trick, is to take your drawing and hold it up to a mirror. And the mirror is oftentimes a great way, it can just show your mistakes pretty quickly. So, by stepping away from it for a day, that lets your brain kind of reset. But a quick way just to reset what you're looking at is to just look at it in a mirror. Okay, so I think that helped it out a little bit. I didn't realize that my lines were just a little bit on the diagonal here, but I straightened those out. I think the same thing might want to make a quick adjustment here. Okay. So my goal is just to give this a little bit more detail and some value. I would say that we're not really aiming in this video for hyper realism. So if that's what you came here for, I hope I don't disappoint you. But I think if you're just trying to figure out how to get started with adding details and adding value, this should give you the help that you need to get that going and give you a solid foundation for taking your drawing a little further. Okay, so what I want to do is actually start off with the pear. So let's get this just a little closer. And as you can see, I have my, for most of my videos, I've just been using a standard pencil, but I thought it might be helpful for you to use drawing pencils. So here we have an ebony pencil, 6B, 4B, 2B, HB, 2H, and 4H. So I have those here. I'm going to pull them to the side, and I'll just let you know the ones that we're going to be working on. So what I want to do is just make sure my lines are nice and clean. Now, if you're aiming for a more realistic look, just be careful about not putting too heavy of an outline around your objects. If you do, if you put a very heavy outline, that's going to make it look a bit, give it a more of a graphic look or more of a slight cartoon look. So just be careful about doing too heavy of an outline. So, so we're going to start off with our 4H pencil. And the overall rule that we have is when we're placing value is if you see white, then leave it white. So if I look close here with this pear, maybe my lightest part is over here. So I think what I want to do is just give this a foundation of a very light gray. If this process is a little slow for you, feel free to either zoom forward or change the speed of the video player to maybe to 1.5 or double speed, and you can kind of see this evolve. I'm purposely not having a fast forward as part of the video, just in case some of you out there actually want to see the process in real time. So I leave it up to you. So I'm kind of just, you can go if you want side to side, but I'm kind of changing in a lot of different directions just because I don't want there to be a pattern of where my marks are. Okay, so I think this is a decent foundation with my 4H. Now we're just going to climb up the ladder. Now I'm going to go to a 2H. So I want to look in my picture for my next range of darker values. So I can see that my darker values are starting to build over here and over here. And if you're having a hard time seeing those values, what I suggest that you do is with your eyes, just kind of squint your eyes a little bit and just try to blur everything with your eyes. And that sometimes can help you to see where the values are starting to change. Or you might just see like a darker splotches of value. If you want, you could also kind of maybe curve your pencil so that it's following some of the contour of the pear. But since the pear is an organic form, we have value that's kind of going in a lot of different directions, or it's not a uniform. It's not uniform like what we would see in something that's more machined, like the iron. So I'm seeing a little bit of value here. Okay, that's my next step. So as you can see, we're really building these layers very lightly, one over the other. So my next pencil that I'll jump into is my HB. Now, if you don't have these drawing pencils, you can of course just use a regular pencil, but it means you're gonna have to be work with your pressure. So you're gonna have to control your pressure a lot more. And these pencils just allow you to kind of keep a steady pressure, and the pencils do the work. The actual pencils and their softness do the work. Okay, so now I want to find the next range of darker value. I barely have to press down on this, and you can see that this is starting to get darker pretty quick. So you don't have to do this, but if you want to squint your eyes a little bit, try to look for those areas of value. Later on, I'll show you a digital way of finding value by taking a picture and posterizing it. So that's something you could do if you have Photoshop, or we could go online and find an online photo editor that you could do that for free if you're wanting to see your value in different levels. I'm going to try to do this without smudging my picture. I like doing drawings without smudging. I'm not saying it's wrong to smudge, but I kind of like seeing the texture of the pencil. There's something about that that gives the drawing a richness. But if you're wanting to go hyper realistic and use paintbrushes to smooth out the graphite, that's okay. But this is what I'm going to do. So I already feel like some of you out there want to take your fingers and start to smudge it. But if you do that, if you start to smudge, you might start to lose the ability to layer things very slowly. And that's what I'm doing right here. I'm just layering this slowly, one pencil at a time. Okay, I'm getting close. Let's jump up to another pencil. I'm going to use my 2B. And we want to make sure that we have a nice sharp pencil point. Okay, so the 2B is going to be a pretty decent jump now. We want to be careful with how hard we're pressing here. A little bit of that line overlapping here. I'm going to try to take that out. That next area of dark value that I see is over here on the right. And we can see that there's a little bit of a highlight, so we're not going to use this dark to go all the way over. It's going to leave a little bit of that edge same color. And when we do that, it's going to give a shiny look to the edge of our pear. So one of the main things that I wanted you to notice when we're doing our picture is that grays are important for making a picture look realistic, and oftentimes the mistake of an amateur artist will just be to leave things too white. So I've often said if you don't see white, you can't leave it white. So make sure that if you're seeing pure white, then it's okay to leave the paper white. But if you don't see pure white in your picture or what you're looking at in real life, then keep pushing your values. So that's going to be just something that just requires a little effort and a little diligence, just to want to keep pushing on your values instead of just wanting to rest on what you see with the white, because it's just less work. I think that's just the bottom line. This process is a little slower, a little tedious maybe, but it can also be very relaxing. So just depends on how you look at it. So I want to be careful here. I'm feeling I'm right on the edge of making my picture maybe a little dark. So I just see a little bit more value here. It looks like there's a little bit of a spot here, which I'll put in. And there's one over here. So you can ultimately decide, like, if, for example, if these two spots were an eyesore for you, you could say, well, I'm going to leave those out. Okay, now we have the stem. And I'm actually going to want to jump to a darker pencil. So I think I'm going to go all the way up to my 6B for this, so we can get a nice dark value for that. And the challenge with these 6Bs and 4Bs is that they're very soft. So if you sharpen the pencil, they won't stay sharp. You have to keep turning your pencil as you work. Okay, so I'm going to stop there with the pear, and let's get just a little closer so you can see my work. So there's the picture, and there is my pear. See if I can get the focus. There we go. So you can see that I'm leaving a lot of my marks because I think that makes it look rich. So if we were going for a little bit more realism, we would clean up the edges. So, but for now, we're just gonna let this be. I'm gonna do a cleanup of those edges maybe at the end of the video. Just to get that back in focus. Okay. I think I want to save my iron for last, and the reason why is that the iron has a lot of black in it. So when you're putting all that graphite down, all that heavy, really dark value, it could be easy to smudge. So let's kind of work with our light values first. So I think the next thing that I'm going to do is work on this bottle. So we are going to start that process all over again. I'm going to grab my 4H, and glass sometimes can be a little tricky, So try not to think of this as glass, but just see it as a group of shapes and value. So from what I said before, I said you want to leave your whites white, and the only part of the glass here that's white are these highlights. The rest of it is gray. So that means with our pencil, we're going to go ahead and put in a nice gray foundation in our picture. And if you want, you could do the whole thing gray and then take your eraser to erase out some of the highlights. It's whatever you think you want to do. I'm just going to go ahead and just fill in a nice gray foundation for this. You don't have to do this, but I'm going to curve my pencil so that I'm going with the contour of the bottle. Now the bottle is so smooth that you're not really seeing that, but I think for me it's just a habit. I tend to shade in the direction of the contour of the forms, and that's always served me pretty well. So nice and even. All right, so we have a foundation of gray that's laid down. I'm going to take my eraser later and then erase out the highlights. So wherever you see these white shapes that are here, I'll take my eraser to do that. Okay, so I just used my 4H pencil. Let's jump up. Let's jump up to our 2H. And I see a little bit of a value change here right along the side. I'm looking at right here, not the black streak. It's pretty subtle what I'm seeing, and maybe there's just a little bit over here on the side. And I'm putting a band of that value here, and then I'm blending it with the gray next to it with very light pressure. Seeing a little bit of some value up here. And I'm also seeing some value down here at the bottom. This should be a lot easier if you're if you're doing the same thing that I am and working from this picture, you'll be able to look at that picture closer. If you're working from a still life, an actual still life setup, that you're just going to need to look as best as you can. And I have often said that sometimes you could cheat a little bit and take your smartphone out, take a picture of what you're looking at, and then maybe zoom in with your lens. That can kind of help if you're having a hard time seeing detail. Okay, we're going to jump up. I'm going to grab my different pencil. I'm going to grab a different pencil here. So I think I'm actually going to just skip right to the 2B because I want to start to put in some of these darker values. So what I see here are these shapes that are right along the edge. And I want to put that lip in. And you can see here there's a little bit of there's a ridge that's in the glass. It's very subtle, but it's causing that dark value to kind of streak over a little bit. We're leaving a gap here, and then as we come down the side, that gap's going to diminish, and this is just going to get closer to the edge. And that's often the case with glass. It'll just kind of leave a little bit of a space. This could probably go just a little thicker. Let's go to this side. We'll do the same thing. This line over here could probably be a little thinner. I made it a bit on the thick side. So let's put a nice crisp thin line here. My 2B. I'm going to put that black streak in. Just going to look to see what that shape is doing right now. It's just coming out a little bit. So the edge over here is crisp, but on the left side it's kind of doing just kind of going in and out. I think it could be tempting to want to think I need to draw and make it like glass, but I think the best thing that you could do is just draw what you see, draw those weird shapes that you're looking at, like, and it'll look like glass when you're done. You just need to trust that if you follow the shapes that are on there, eventually it'll come together and it'll look like glass when you're done. Base a little bit down here. Trying to find the values that I see. look here, I did a mark on my paper just to show where the iron was. So let me erase that so you can see a bit of that. Tip of this, or the top of this, should be a little crisper. So when I'm done, I'll try to clean up the edge. Okay, so I put down most of the value that's here. I think what I'll do is I'll just grab my 6B and really just press down a bit more on some of these darker areas, give it a nice deep black look. So you want to be careful that when you press down, you are going to start to make it look a little shiny. You're going to give it a little bit of that gloss look. If you remember back to another video that I showed you, I explained what happens to paper when we press down too hard. It starts to remove the tooth of the paper, and you're just pressing all those fibers down. And so I don't know if you're seeing that. You're probably not seeing that gloss or that shininess, but you'll see it at home when you press down really hard. So, but once you press down, it's kind of you can erase, but it's almost I would hesitate before you go back. I'm going to find a little bit of value here at the top. Very light here. There's a very light lip going across. Let me just clean up the edge at the top here. That's going to help it out. Okay, so I feel like I'm at a good place with my glass bottle to the left. Now I want to do this bottle, so we're going to look at the values. Oh, before I forget, I forgot to put in the highlights, so let's go ahead and find those highlights, and I think I'm going to use just my regular pencil for this. And if you're having a hard time seeing those values, we can go back in there and just right on the edge of the highlights, just define the edge of the highlights a little bit more. highlights can often be just very interesting, strange looking shapes that are they have like no rhyme or reason. They're just reflecting the lights or the glare that's in the room. But without them, they really, that's what gives glass its look, is those white streaky highlights that are going across it, glass and chrome especially. As I've put just a little bit of value around the edge of the highlight, I am just trying to make that value even around the outside of it. I'm pressing very light, I'm barely pressing on the paper right now. Okay, I'm happy with that. So I went and grabbed a flat brush, and if you noticed, I was getting away all my marks, but I think using a brush is going to be a little bit better. This way, we're going to avoid, because you could, as you're smearing or getting away your marks, you're going to take some of that graphite and smudge it across. The other thing that I just picked up was just a quick piece of paper. So the reason why I have that is now I'm going to go ahead and put that paper down right here, so that as I work and I move my hand around, I'm not going to smudge all that hard work that I've done before. So this is a good idea. Just grab a regular piece, you can just grab a regular piece of paper that you get from your printer. So do that. I'm now going to erase those guidelines that I put on my bottle, because we don't want those to stand out. All right, we're going to begin the process all over again. Only this time, instead of starting with our 2H, we're going to go with our 2B, because this is already pretty dark. So I think what I want to do is I want to just put where the highlights are here. And I'm going to put down my gray foundation. I put these streaks down, you might see that I might have some banding happening. So what do I mean by that? Well, if you're not careful, you're going to have a set of marks connecting to another set of marks. So this is where pressure becomes really important. And if you can, try to make your streaks as wide as possible to avoid that. But I think sometimes that banding looks kind of cool. It gives it a little bit of texture. So it's really up to you. If you're going for that hyper realism, you're going to want to avoid that. So I'm going to just keep building up my value here. I wanted to sharpen the edge of now there's a strong chance that I'll just be pressing down harder on all this, but I really like to build my values up slowly when I'm working with all this. So it's just a process. So this really makes you patient. So just try to enjoy the journey of just building this up and letting this kind of come to life. Okay, so I have a nice solid foundation now. I'm going to push down a little bit harder and increase this all to a little bit more of a medium gray. I know some of you out there might just be thinking, well, why didn't you just push down this hard from the beginning? Well, I think it's difficult. If you press down too hard, it's difficult to go backwards. I think it's way easier just to kind of build this up slowly. You also need to let your eyes adjust to the grays that you see in front of you. Okay, now I'll just jump to my next pencil. So let's go to our 4B. And as I look in the glass, you're going to see the parts that you're going to want to leave this current gray. So to the right of the bottle here, I have like a highlight streak. And I'm going to start to build away from that. This is where having that nice gray foundation underneath lets you just build slowly, because we want to start to try to find some of these different value shapes. I think it might be difficult on the camera. You can see more detail in the photo. So look hard if you're looking at that example that you downloaded. So you can pretty much work exactly as I'm working. You can build this up the same way. That's why we're doing this long process, so you could just do it along with me. And if I'm going too slow, go ahead and speed this up, or just slide to the part that you're comfortable with. Another streak here on the side. I'm going to look hard and try to find these darker streaks that are in here. I'm going to try to get my highlights close to where these are, but I think it's okay where they're not ultra accurate. It does help, but I guess I'm not going to go too crazy here with trying to really saying too much right now. You guys can just see that I'm continuing just that process of building this up slowly, looking for my values. Trying not to build too much too quickly. I'd rather err on going slow. Okay, so I'm actually going to stop with what I'm doing. I feel like I've done quite a bit. I will continue with this, and I wasn't planning on making a part 3, but since there's a lot more work that needs to be done, I just feel like this would be a good stopping point for me. So I'm hoping that you guys want to stick with me and to the conclusion of this drawing. So I'm looking forward to seeing you again, and I hope I brought you some value. I look forward to seeing you soon. Thanks so much.